Hello, people. Welcome back to Sports Authority.
We have news. Breaking.
Huge news out of Buffalo, New York.
Guaranteeing them to go negative.
The Bills coming off of the most embarrassing loss of the season, which is losing to Denver 24-22. And I will specify that the Broncos kicked a game-winning field goal as time expired. And here's how it happened. They kicked the field goal as time expired and missed. But there was a defensive penalty because the Bills had 12 men on the field. They got to re-kick it. If there was a defensive penalty, the game doesn't end. They run 1 second on the clock, so you have enough for one play. And they kicked the field goal and won. The Broncos, who currently sitting at 4-5 and were one of the worst teams coming into the season, especially after the first couple of weeks, have fired their offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey. Now, I've seen a lot about breaking down the firing and like what's really the problem, and pretty much what it boils down to is that his play calling was way too basic and predictable for defenses.
Yeah.
You got too much talent on that offensive side of the ball. Josh Allen, obviously.
Deep play every time, every play. Deep play every play.
Gabe Davis,
Deep
James Cook.
play.
You got too many guys over there to be playing too much basic football when you're playing in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So they fired him.
Good.
And this discussion is really to go with what are the Bills going to do now, because it's looking like their season's, luckily for them, the AFC is very tight, so they can win a couple and a couple other teams lose a couple, and they're back in the playoffs. But they're currently the 10th seed in the AFC, which means they're several teams away from being in that playoff spot. And they got a tough schedule, so just to rattle off a couple of their tough opponents, they got Jets, Eagles, Cowboys, Chiefs, and Dolphins. They got a couple decent ones with the Patriots and Chargers, but they're going to lose. What?
Chargers are tough. Anyways.
Yeah. So unless they turn something around, they're going to lose a majority of the rest of those games. They're going to probably finish the season with 7-10, something like that. But do we think that the firing of their offensive coordinator
is going to fix anything?
Right, because now it's going to be back to Sean
know.
McDermott calling plays.
I think Sean McDermott isn't that good either.
I don't either, but he's definitely better than Ken Dorsey. I think that what this changes
Where
is...
did Ken Dorsey come from? Or has he been with him this whole time?
I don't know. Let me look up Ken Dorsey's stats. I don't know where he worked before. But tell me what you think is going to happen with him for the rest of the season while I find this.
To be honest, I predicted this in the beginning. Call me a genius. Call me a guru. The Bills are going to go negative.
Okay.
They're just going to go down south. I mean, if you lost to the Broncos, that's... Look, nothing against... Actually, everything against Russell Wilson. He's ass, and you guys lost to him. Not to mention, you have the Jets, who are scrappy. You guys already lost to the Jets once. You guys can lose to the Jets again. I don't see that not being a possibility. The Eagles defense is robust. If you don't really have an OC there that's able to not only dissect, but able to predict how the Eagles are going to play defensively, they're going to squash you. Their defense is also suspect after losing a couple of players earlier on in the season. The Chiefs. Mahomes just knows how to dice up any defense with whatever he gets. Like, Mahomes could have, like, Sloppy Joe school lunch, throw the football at it, and he'd still make a play. I don't know how. I don't know why. It's just going to happen. Cowboys, their defense is impeccable. They have been given a couple of softballs here and there. But Cowboys' defense is great. Their offense is ridiculous. You'll get creamed there. Chargers, scrappy. If you lose to Herbert, you're a bum. Patriots, your only game you're guaranteed to win because Belichick is on his way out the door. And then the Dolphins, we want revenge.
Yep. So his career was that he was a scout for the Panthers. Then he went on to serve as the assistant director of athletics for Florida International University. And then he was a quarterback's coach for the Bills, which is a pretty big leap because he didn't really have any real coaching experience. And then he ended up becoming the offensive coordinator in 2022. So, yeah, not much coaching experience. I get the firing. It's not like he has a resume really to back him up. What I will say is I think firing him and opening up the playbook a little bit more allows some of these games to be more competitive. I think games like the Jets and Dolphins are going to be more competitive. Maybe even Dallas or the Chiefs are going to be a little more competitive. The problem is that because they don't have any buffer anymore of having the wins, like at the beginning of the season, they were 3-1, then 4-2, then 5-3, and they just lost a bunch of games in a row. And so they don't really have a buffer of a couple of wins to afford losing any of these close games. So it's going to take some luck winning some of these closer games, but they could still do it. But the premise of this old video is that Ken Dorsey got fired, and now the Bills are kind of in panic mode with what to do with that offense. Obviously, they have an interim coordinator, but Who knows how good he's going to be? I think this is probably the end of the Bills season in terms of their playoff chances. I think they might probably win one or two of these close games, but I don't think it's going to be enough to make the playoffs. I think they have too many tough games left.
I don't think they will, and I said this from the beginning. I mean, they didn't look too good winning all those earlier games. They barely beat the Bucks.
The only one that was impressive was the Dolphins, and that's divisional. So, like, you know, what does that really mean? They barely beat the Giants.
The Giants game was
barely beat Tampa.
Atrocious.
Yeah.
They lost to the Jags. They squashed the Commanders. They smacked Dolphins. They beat the Raiders.
This one they normally do. They're really good for the first 3 or 4 weeks. They crush people, and then they start slowing down. That's what they did last year too. That's what they did the year before that.
And they're going to continue.
Yeah.
And as that continues, players are going to get frustrated, and then not to mention that's going to affect the locker room. We already saw how last year affected Stephon Diggs. I can only imagine how this is going to start affecting him as well.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, he's a bit of a baby, bit of a diva.
So we'll see what happens, but drop a subscribe to keep updated on what happens with the NFL.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
We'll be following the story as it develops even more. But
I hope the Bills just go negative for the rest of their.
I'm not a Bills fan, so I don't really care. I don't want them to win. Maybe beat the Eagles because I don't, fuck the Eagles. But besides that, I kind of hope they just.
That's the only game I would be like, okay, fine.
Yeah, I kind of hope that they just kind of ride out the season, maybe 7 or 8 and 9, something like that, and yep. So we'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching, and close this out, Gian.
Stay frosty, my friends.